Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us. Today's program, Better Sleep for a Healthier Life, features Sunny Liang, who will provide an overview of the importance of sleep, what happens during sleep, the impact of poor sleep, and some solutions that might help you sleep better. Before I introduce Sunny, I'll mention that Senior Planet seeks out subject matter experts for these programs, many of which have used their expertise in the for-profit sector. So we're thrilled to have Sunny here with us today. He's got a ton of great information for you today. I'll just note that as a nonprofit, Oats and Senior Planet is not specifically endorsing any particular platforms or products. So we hope you take the information from here today, do some research about what fits you best on your own, and go from there. So with that, I'd like to introduce Sunny Liang. He's the CEO and co-founder of Zen Sleep, a sleep coaching and data analytics platform. As a lifelong insomniac, he suffered serious sleep problems during his time working on Wall Street. After many sleepless nights, he underwent cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, so CBTI, which changed his life for the better. And then he set out to create Zen Sleep as an accessible and tech-forward solution to bring proven scientific sleep help to the masses. So with that, please join me in welcoming Sunny. Sunny, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks so much, dear. I really appreciate that intro. And just good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the folks here. I don't know where part of the country or where in the world you guys are calling in or logging in from, but it's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be here. So shout out to Deirdre, Julia, and Jeff for this opportunity. So as Deirdre mentioned, just a very quick kind of intro of myself. My name is Sunny. I'm the CEO and co-founder of my company, Zen Sleep. In a quick nutshell, we're a sleep coaching platform and app that you can download off the App Store. It teaches you how to sleep better, basically. More on that in a second. But I really wanted to take this opportunity really for the next 30 to 40 minutes today to kind of share my own experience, my own thoughts on the sleep world, on sleep science, on sleep medicine, but also on sleep technology, which is something that is changing really rapidly. Over the last couple of years, we've had a lot of great wearables such as Apple Watches and Whoops and Fitbits. Many of you are probably wearing these right now as well. And that's really changed the way we think about sleep and health and wellness. So I just wanted to take this opportunity here, kind of share our journey, our experience, and then we'll leave probably 10 to 15 minutes towards the end for some Q&A. So feel free to ask any questions in the chat box during the course of this, and Deirdre and I will address them towards the end. So yeah, that's kind of the game plan. I wanted to just give a quick heads up. So yeah, let's get things kicked off here. All right. Okay. All right, Deidre, are we good here with this
Yep,
present?
looks great.
Okay, awesome. All right, so better sleep for a healthier life. Well, let's start off with a quick question here. Sorry, do a quick little fact here. Did you know that 1 out of 3 adults in the United States suffers from sleep problems? And that can include anything from insomnia to sleep apnea to restless leg syndrome to hormonal-based sleep issues. So it's really an epidemic that is largely unaddressed. Unfortunately, we went through COVID the last couple of years. That's really been the highlight. But as we've seen with other health issues in the past, it's usually, people don't usually realize it until it's too late. And in our opinion, sleep is one of those things that just hasn't gotten the spotlight. I think there have been a lot of really good things in the last couple of years, but we still have a long way to go. So part of my mission today is to kind of go through why we think sleep is so important and why you should take sleep seriously. So let me just start off with my own personal story. So after college, I started my career on Wall Street back in New York City as a junior investment banker. So for anyone that's heard about investment banking or the Gordon Gekko days, it's tough work, right? And as a junior banker, your job is to basically be at the bottom of the food chain, work 90 to 100 times over 100 hours a week, doing a lot of paperwork, doing a lot of analytical modeling, doing a lot of presentations, and you're just sort of there 24/7 to kind of accommodate what your bosses and what your team wants. So during my half decade on Wall Street, I started having sleep issues a couple of years in. And I remember even as a child, when I was young, I always had sleep issues here and there. There'd be times where it's 1 or 2 in the morning as a third grader and I can't sleep. So my parents would say, oh, read me a story or something, kind of talk to me, and then I'd eventually fall asleep. So the older I got, the more I realized, okay, there might be something, wrong with my sleep patterns at times. So as you can imagine, working on Wall Street, when you have a lot of stress, you have a lot of deliverables, you're kind of drinking caffeine during the day or even at night to get work done, to stay up late. But then once that caffeine's in your system, it's really hard to fall asleep. So I unfortunately got into the bad pattern of staying up till 2 or 3 in the morning working, trying to go to sleep, not being able to go to sleep, and then having to wake up at 7 or 8 in the morning. So towards the end of my time on Wall Street, unfortunately, really kind of hit a wall, and I just wasn't sleeping at all, and I really needed help at that point. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about kind of how I got to the help, how I got to CBTI, and why I think CBTI is really an incredible solution. So, just a little bit about kind of my family as well. This is my late grandmother. Love her, miss her a lot, and that's baby me. I think I was around 1 years old. But grandma also suffered from severe insomnia in her life, and unfortunately, in the last 20, 30 years or so of her life, she was on sleeping pills. And at the time, and I think even today, a lot of doctors sort of nonchalantly prescribe sleeping pills. And perhaps some of you might be on sleeping pills, but it's one of the things where we, during the with science, with medical research over the last couple of years, we've started seeing that sleeping pills are not usually as good as we thought they were. And these things are essentially what we call sedative hypnotics. You take them, and they essentially turn your brain off and they help you get to sleep. But long-term use of sleeping pills has shown that it is not very good for you from a health perspective. So one of the missions that we have, and really starting Zen Sleep is maybe in some ways a little love letter to my late grandmother, is that we want to help people really start off by using a non-invasive solution, right? So using CBTI, using other solutions to really help them understand their sleep, right? And really build better sleep from the ground up instead of just taking pills after pills. Sometimes it might just be, hey, you're drinking coffee a little too late. You're not exercising enough, right? Or the nap you're taking in the afternoon is a little too long, and it resets what you call your sleep debt, right? And that makes it hard for you to fall asleep at night. So there are a lot of factors which we'll touch on over the course of the next couple of minutes. Really what we call sleep hygiene as to why you might be having sleep issues. And really at the end of the day, we want to help people really as a first line of defense, right? Use non-invasive solutions to really help them sleep better. Ultimately, there are definitely people that will have to be on sleeping pills, but really it shouldn't be the first line of defense. And I think that's what a lot of physicians, right? PCPs, general practitioners, and even the more specialized sleep doctors as well as psychologists are really starting to understand and starting to push nowadays. So yeah, this is a family matter for me, something that's I'm very passionate about, that's really close to me, and hopefully we've been able to build something to help more folks. All right, so this is my company. This is Zen Sleep. This is a very quick kind of preview of our app, and you can find it on the App Store on both Apple and Google. We'll have links towards the end where you can go on our website. You can go on the App Store to download. So no need to worry about jotting this down for now. I just want to give you a quick preview of what we're all about. All right, so let's start off by talking about sleep and why it's so important. So, according to all the major medical research that we have up to this point in 2025, it's basically proven that adults need about 7 to 9 hours of sleep on average every night, and that goes for probably 80 to 90% of the population. There are parts of the population where they can deal with a little bit more or a little bit less, but for the most part, 7 to 9 hours is a pretty good gauge, right? So if you're only sleeping 3 or 4 hours a night, something's probably going on, right? You should probably try to address that. If you're sleeping 10, 11, 12 hours a day, that might also be something to flag with your physician to see what's going on there. So as we touched on earlier, sleep deprivation, something experienced by myself as well as my late grandmother, in the long run really leads to a lot of health problems and issues, right? And long-term sleep deprivation has been shown to lead to problems like Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, heart attacks, and more. So this is definitely, I hate to use this word, but really a silent killer, right? We think of disease, accidents, and things like that. But really, what is the root cause for a lot of these things? And it's poor sleep, right? It's long-term sleep deprivation. And unfortunately, in our society, as I briefly touched on earlier, when even a lot of physicians or medical professionals, they see, oh, you're not sleeping, the first line of defense becomes medication, right? It becomes prescribing Ambien, prescribing sleeping pills, just to say, okay, take this for 2 weeks. You're going to sleep better. And chances are you probably will, right? Because this thing will knock you out and help you sleep for 2 weeks. And then your prescription runs out and you can't sleep anymore. And then you go back and that becomes sort of this recurring revenue stream. Unfortunately, that's what happened with my late grandmother, is that, she was on sleeping pills for a little bit, became reliant, couldn't get off of it, and then the dosages became higher and higher. So this is a story that's really told time and time and again. And I've heard this from a lot of folks, especially from the 60 plus community. And that's a big reason why we created Zen Sleep, to really help people, A, not get on these medication, right? Or B, even if you're on medication, help you get off of that in a more non-invasive solution. So a little bit more on the science of sleep here, and my apologies ahead of time if this is a little scientific or technical. But what happens during sleep is that we go through sleep, or what we call REM cycles, right? So when you fall asleep, you usually start off in the light sleep phase, right? And then you go into your REM phase, what you call rapid eye movement, and that's where you're dreaming, right? So when you dream, your eyes actually move around. If you ever see a sleep study, right? Your eyes are actually moving left and right, up and down during the REM phase while you're dreaming. And then the light phase of the sleep is when your brain recovers, right? Yeah, other parts of your body recovers. And during deep sleep, which is also very important, is when your bone and your muscle, other organs of your body start to repair themselves. So it's a really fascinating thing that happens during sleep, because you go through these ups and downs between these different cycles, and obviously at times people wake up. That's also something to watch out for if you have sleep apnea potentially. But the cool thing about this is that a lot of these wearables, right, your Apple Watches, your Fitbits, your Auras, your Whoops nowadays can really track these cycles. So it's helpful information if you want to learn about, hey, am I getting enough deep sleep or REM sleep or light sleep? You can look at these wearables. You can look at a lot of these apps. Zen Sleep, we connect to your wearable as well to show you what's going on here. And that really helps you better understand kind of, am I getting enough sleep, right? I think, the first number that is good to consider is total length, right? As we talked about earlier, 7 to 9 hours is probably the ideal kind of sweet spot. And then beyond that, if you want to learn a little bit more about your REM and light and deep, that could be really helpful as well. All right, so that's a little bit about kind of the sleep science part of it. Let's talk a little bit about some of the common sleep problems after the age of 60. And many of you have probably learned a little bit about this or are dealing with this currently. So just full disclosure, I am not a medical doctor. I'm just a guy that can't sleep well, that started a tech company to help people sleep. So take this with a grain of salt, and refer to your physician ultimately on what your condition is. But let's get started off with insomnia. And this is, my personal story. And this is really anything from not being able to go to sleep, waking up a lot, waking up early, or just general behavioral or mental related sleep issues, right? So insomnia is a big portion. It affects a lot of people. And it is largely understood that it's underreported. So I've seen numbers up to 40 to 60% of total adults in the world actually have some form of insomnia. For a lot of people, it's light insomnia, it's occasional insomnia. For someone like me, it's chronic insomnia. So that's something that you have to be able to deal with. And unfortunately, as we've talked about a couple of times already, the first line of defense has always been sleeping pills. And that's something that we're trying to get people away from, and to use more non-invasive CBTI to help them with that. And the best way to kind of work with insomnia is to better your daily habits, right? Learn how to cognitively restructure your brain and your mind to really understand, hey, why is it that I'm having sleep issues, right? So more on that in a second, and kind of what we're doing with that. But the second one, and many of you are probably familiar with this, is sleep apnea. And this is more of a physiological issue. It has to do with your breathing at night. And essentially what happens with sleep apnea is that when you're sleeping, you basically stop breathing, right? At times during the night. So this is a very serious issue. And there's been a big industry made around this. There's a company called ResMed that many of you might be familiar with that makes CPAP and BiPAP machines. There's a company called Inspire recently that can put something in your windpipe and you click a button at night and it kind of opens it up. So there's a lot of really cool technology around sleep apnea. This tends to affect men more than women, although it could happen either way. And with apnea, really you have to go to a good sleep physician that will do a test for you and then give you one of these machines. So that's something that here at Zen Sleep we're not as specialized on. We have great partners that deal with apnea, but that's obviously one of the bigger sleep issues as well that we see every day. And the third one I want to touch on, and also kind of close to me and my family, is hormonal induced sleep issues. And my mom went through this really a couple of years ago, where she's having a really tough time even falling asleep, staying asleep, waking up with hot flashes. So for the women, this is something that is very prevalent. It's absolutely normal. I think that there has unfortunately been a stigma around this in the past, but I think we're getting to the point where we're really better understanding this, and we're helping really the women in this community understand this better, right? And there are a lot of ways that you can deal with this. I'll admit I'm not the specialist for this, but there are a lot of great physicians and trained psychologists and women's health professionals that can really help with the sleep issues related to hormonal changes. So these are kind of the three key pillars of sleep problems that we see every day. There's other things like narcolepsy or restless leg syndrome. Those are probably more specialized. Those are things that probably need some kind of medication. So definitely refer to your physician. But at a high level, these are some of the sleep issues and problems that we see pretty often. All right, so what happens when you don't sleep enough, right? I think that's kind of the big question that everyone asks. I myself, one of the things I've always tested, the last 4 or 5 years is if I'm not sleeping well, right? How do I feel? And I give myself a little score. And the one thing that's jumped out to me personally is that I tend to get sick every time I've gotten sick with a cold or flu or something. That's usually predated by a period where I'm not sleeping well, right? Whether it's traveling, it's stress, falling off some bad sleep habits and things like that. So from the physical side, from the physical health side, sleep has been shown through many NIH studies to have a very quick and direct impact to your near-term health. But as we talked about earlier, there have also been a lot of research showing long-term poor sleep over the course of decades can lead to Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, heart attacks, strokes, and many more things. So it's really vital for us to understand that sleep is really the root cause. And unfortunately, a lot of health providers don't really kind of focus on the sleep, right? They just prescribe you, for example, my mom's on blood thinners, right? Well, what's the cause of this, right? It could be the diabetes, it could be sleep, it could be other things. So I think we're finally getting to the point where a lot of health professionals are realizing, oh, maybe it's because you have apnea for the last 20 years and you're not breathing well. That might be the cause of some of your heart issues, right? Or if you have insomnia and you're not sleeping enough, that might lead to another health issue. So a lot of the comorbidities we're seeing are now being addressed to underlying sleep issues. Mental health, right? That's another huge factor. And I just think back to my time working on Wall Street, where I was sleeping 3 to 4 hours a night, and working on really important deals, and you just have a brain fog around you, and it affects your mental health unquestionably, right? It affects not just your work product, but I think your personal relationships, and really the ability to use your brain in a correct way. So that's just as important, if not more important, than the physical health point. The third point is really just safety, right? One of the interesting things that we looked at recently is, the highest cause, one of the highest causes of traffic accidents and traffic insurance claims is actually sleep deprivation, right? Fortunately, DUIs and driving under the influences, that's one probably the leading cause. But one of the things that people don't realize is sleep deprivation causes accidents, right? And it can cause you to fall over, it cause you to get in a car crash, and it could cause you to make mistakes on the job or say the wrong thing. So, again, it's one of the things that we really have to take into account, right? When we're doing things like, hey, did I get enough sleep, right? Like, am I going to do something wrong? Am I going to put myself in danger? So vitally important for us to really get those 7 to 9 hours for us to operate correctly every day. And now that we've talked about the sleep problems, right? What are the solutions? What have people traditionally used to combat these problems, right? Number one, as we talked about already, sleeping pills, right? Probably the most extreme, right? Again, there are definitely people that will have to be on sleeping pills if you've exhausted all your other options, right? You'd rather be able to sleep on sleeping pills than not sleep at all. All right, I'll put it that way. But it should never be the first line of defense. The second point, and this is really kind of the more controversial thing, and many of you have probably tried this or are using it right now. It's melatonin. So a little bit about melatonin. So melatonin at the core is a natural enzyme that your body produces. And the way your body produces it is that at night, as the lights go off, right, the sun goes down, naturally your biological clock, your circadian rhythm goes into wind down mode, and your body starts naturally producing this chemical called melatonin. And melatonin, once it hits your brain, says, hey, it's time to go to bed, right? So that's when you get tired, you get relaxed, and you naturally go to sleep. So when we were all cavemen without all our iPads and iPhones and electronics, when the sun went down and you went back to your cave, your body released a lot of melatonin and you went to sleep, right? So melatonin at the core is a natural thing, right? It's something that our body produces. Now, where this gets a little interesting is that the last 10, 20 years or so, melatonin has become one of the best selling supplements, right? You go to your GNC or your vitamin shop, there's melatonin everywhere, right? There's melatonin in your Dr. Teal's bath salt now, right? So they're throwing this everywhere. It helps you relax. It helps you sleep. We get it. However, the last couple of years, as we've learned more about scientific research on melatonin, it's actually shown that long-term use of melatonin is not very good. And I look back at my time on Wall Street where I was taking 5, 10, 20 milligrams of melatonin every night to try to go to bed. And it just got more and more, right? And because your body actually adapts to that unnatural level of melatonin, probably compounded with caffeine during the day when you're trying to drink caffeine to stay up, that becomes a really bad cycle. So melatonin, I think if you talk to most sleep physicians and doctors, they would say, it's generally not harmful, right? Try to limit your intake of melatonin. I'm traveling next week, actually, seeing some of our colleagues AARP. So I'll be a little jet lagged. So I'll probably bring some melatonin just to help me ease in. But it's one of those things that I have, told myself I can't take this daily like I used to. And in fact, after not taking it daily, I've slept a lot better because my body can adapt back to its natural cycle, right? I can now naturally release the melatonin in my body. That can help me really relax and wind down to go to sleep. So melatonin, very interesting topic, a lot of research around it. My personal advice is it's okay to take it here and there for jet lag, for occasional bouts where you're really not sleeping well, but definitely don't try to take it too much on a daily basis. All right, and the last point is really meditation and other breathing exercises and kind of like there's been a lot of focus on Eastern religion and meditation practices, and I think it's all great. I think these are all things that can help calm your brain down, calm your mind down. It's scientifically proven that deep breathing, regulated breathing can help you relax. But it's also one of those things where if you don't understand your relationship with caffeine, alcohol, exercise, and sleep debt, it's probably not going to solve all your issues, right? So it's a nice to have, it's a nice tool, but not the end all be all in our opinion. So that leads us to really the core, right? So what is CBTI, right? CBTI stands for Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Insomnia. Many of you are probably familiar with CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, right? It's used to treat PTSD, treat mental health struggles, a lot of great things, and it's awesome, right? And the reason I say it's awesome is because it's non-invasive. It's all done basically through your brain, through your body, through your habits, through yourself, right? You're not putting foreign things in your system that could harm you. And the division of CBT or CBTI for insomnia is really what I personally went through. So backtrack to my time in New York. During the end of my time on Wall Street, I really just hit a wall. I wasn't sleeping, drinking a lot of coffee at night to stay up to do deals, and then taking a lot of melatonin to try to go to sleep, and then really not getting good quality sleep. So I finally caved and I said, okay, I got to go to a sleep doctor. So I found a sleep doctor back in New York, went there, really talked me through CBTI. And I thank this doctor again, because I think that was a big changing, pivoting point in my life. And he said, okay, I don't want you on sleeping pills, right? I don't want you taking all this melatonin, drinking all this coffee. And I said, Doc, how am I going to sleep? Right. And he started introducing me to this concept of CBTI. He educated me on what circadian rhythm is during the day, what's a sleep cycle, like we talked about. And a really important concept that he told me was sleep debt, right? And we'll talk about this in a second too. But really understanding like, hey, why do we go to sleep, right? It's because we have to accumulate enough sleep debt at night to be able to say, okay, I can transition to sleep now. So, for example, if you're taking naps during the day that are 4 hours long, that actually reduces your sleep debt. So when it comes 10, 11, or 12 at night, when you actually have to go to sleep, it's hard for your body to go to sleep. So it was things like that that really helped educate me to understand, oh, wow, sleep isn't one of those things where like take a pill and then I'll pass out, right? You could do that, but it's not very good. So through those things, right, through that education, that was really where I started changing my life and my sleep around and really turning things around. So I'm grateful for that, doctor. Grateful for CBTI. It's one of the solutions that's growing really fast right now, and we're grateful that more people are learning about it. So how does CBTI work, right? Let's talk about this for a quick second. The first pillar of CBTI is what we call sleep hygiene, right? And the example I like is we all know about dental hygiene. We all need to know that we need to floss and brush our teeth and use mouthwash every day. If you stop doing that, your teeth are probably going to rot, right? And that's the same thing with sleep hygiene. You've got to really stay on this every day, where you got to really learn about your sleep issues, about the good habits you have to build every day to be able to consistently have good sleep. Some of the examples of good sleep hygiene is, for example, cutting off caffeine early enough, right? So that it's not in your system. Having an espresso after dinner 2 hours before you go to bed is probably not a good idea if you have insomnia, right? Having 3 glasses of whiskey, although it might help you relax and fall asleep, right? Your body is working to process that alcohol. Your liver and kidneys are working overtime, right? So that's why we have hangovers in the morning when we drink a little too much. Having consistent exercise, right? 3 to 4 times a week of 20 minutes or more each day, that really helps your body get into that groove and it helps your body repair over time as well. And other things like, turning off your lights, turning down your lights and electronics, an hour or so before bedtime helps your body relax, right? Helps your retina really start taking in that darkness of the night and your melatonin start to release. And other great habits too. So really sleep hygiene, in our opinion, is the core, right? That's what you have to build from ground up, right? No one's going to be able to tell you what to do. You've got to keep yourself accountable. And through Zen Sleep, we're really that assistant that reminds you to do these things every day. And we also tell you and educate you on what you have to do. The second point, and this is pretty interesting, this is maybe a little controversial at times, is what we call sleep restriction. So remember the concept of sleep debt we just talked about a few minutes ago. So sleep debt, you have to have enough sleep debt for your body to go to sleep. If you take a nap during the day, and many of you have probably experienced this, it was a great nap, you feel great, but then, oh gosh, at night, like I can't really fall asleep. It's because you don't have enough of that sleep pressure to put your body into sleep, right? So when it comes to sleep restriction, and this is usually done through a licensed CBTI professional, if you're not getting good sleep, right? Let's say you're only having 3 or 4 hours a night, and during the day you're feeling really groggy. I think the first instinct is, oh, let me go take a nap, right? Let me go make up for the 7 or 8 hours I was supposed to have last night. That's actually not the right thing to do. And many providers would actually say, hey, you know what? Tough it out, right? Because the fact that you only slept 4 hours last night when you were supposed to have 8 hours means essentially you have 4 hours of sleep debt, right? That's a good thing, right? Don't get rid of that during the day, because when you go to bed at night now, you've got an extra 4 hours of sleep debt, and that actually helps you get to sleep, right? So sleep restriction, and some people are for it, some people are against it. I think personally, if it's executed in the right manner, it's awesome, right? Because it's scientifically proven that that's how your body gets to sleep. So if you're interested in sleep restriction, my recommendation is work with your CPTI professional, work with your healthcare professional to better understand this. You also don't want to get to the point where if you're just not sleeping at all and you can't function, you're still trying to stay up. That's probably not a good thing, right? So sleep restriction works well, but definitely be mindful, right? Do it with a licensed professional. The last point of CBTI is really what we consider the cognitive element, right? So really, and I'm at fault to this. I'm an overthinker, like my mother, as well as my late grandmother. That's partly why we all have insomnia. Is really at times people think too much, right? Especially when you're stressed out with work, with family, with health. And that becomes this sort of bad cycle of you can't sleep or thinking too much, and that causes you to not be able to sleep, and then you still think too much. So cognitive restructuring is a way of helping you to basically calm your mind, right? Whether it's through meditation, right? Whether it's through philosophical ways of thinking, of psychology, but really saying, okay, I'm here. I'm trying to get to sleep. I don't want to think about these things that could interfere with my sleep. I'm actually going to start counting sheep, for example, right? That's actually a proven way of helping people relax. I'm actually going to think about good things, right? I'm actually going to read a book in the dark, right? One of the great ways of helping people get to sleep is if you can't sleep after about a half an hour, get up, right? Don't turn on your iPad, right? Don't turn on your electronics and things. Turn on a little bit of lighting, grab a nice book, right? Like a real bound book, and start reading, right? Because that actually can help you relax, and it doesn't stimulate your brain, right? With all the electronics and all the blue lighting we have in all our appliances today. So that's really kind of how CBTI works. There are a lot of other great things about it, which I'm happy to talk more about during the Q&A. But for time's sake, we'll move on. And really, as it pertains to this talk today, why is CBTI so good, right? CBTI is great because number one, it's non-invasive. And I always go back to my late grandmother. I think, gosh, what if she learned about this 20, 30 years ago, right? Before the doctor just put her on sleeping pills. I think it probably could have changed her life. And ultimately, we want to help people not become reliant on pills, not reliant on medication. It's great because this is really kind of fixing issues at the core, right? As we talked about earlier, I think a lot of medicine today just treats your surface level symptoms, right? Why am I having back pain, right? Why am I having these symptoms? Why am I having these diseases? A lot of the times it's really because of sleep, and CBTI really helps you build from the ground up, and it's really sustainable. All right, so that's kind of why we believe CBTI is awesome. Everyone should definitely check it out. And the second part, which is kind of why I started this company, is largely because of technology, right? And technology is wonderful because now we have all these great wearables devices. I'm actually wearing two myself right now. They track your data, right? They teach you, are you sleeping, right? What's your key issue? Like, are you getting enough deep sleep? Right? Are you waking too many times at night? And in fact, a lot of these wearables have actually become sort of the first line of defense. I know a couple of folks that have actually been diagnosed with sleep apnea because their Oura ring has told them, hey, your blood oxygen level has fallen to like a 72 at night, which is really low. And we can also see that you're waking up 50 times during the course of the night, right? You might want to get checked, right? And because of that, we can refer people to great sleep apnea partners that can do at-home testing, right? So you no longer have to go to that sleep lab, get 40 different wires put on you over the course of the night and have the worst sleep in the world because you're in some weird facility with 40 cables tied up to you. You can actually do all of this at home now. So technology is really great. And then you probably heard all about AI and data analytics, but it's really a great revolution because the more data we can receive, right, the more we can help you. And so we can say, oh, because of the fact that you were on this new medication and your sleep efficiency decreased, oh, that medication might actually have something to do with it, right? So now we can give that information to your provider and say, hey, maybe Wendy should be on a different kind of medication, sorry, diabetic medication, right? This one's actually affecting her sleep. Maybe Bob should try this other different kind of medication because it's reducing his oxygen levels at night when he's sleeping. So technology is really moving a lot of this forward. We're really at the forefront of it. We love it, obviously, and ultimately, I think this is going to be something that helps many more people along the way. All right, so enough of me, a quick sleep quiz right now. All right, so I've got 4 questions for you, and I want you all to kind of note this down, and I want you to give you a score at the end, right? So question number 1, all right, do you turn all your electronics off at least 1 hour before you go to bed? Okay, so that's question 1. All right, question 2. All right, do you stop drinking caffeine at least 7 hours before your bedtime? Okay, so caffeine is the question. That's the second question. All right, the third question is, do you stop drinking alcohol at least 3 hours before bedtime? It's a hard one, to be honest. And then number 4, do you exercise at least 3 times a week, right, for at least 20 minutes each? Or of course, exercise. All right, so if you answered yes to all 4, then feel free to log off. You don't have any sleep issues. Well, if chances are most of us probably have, yes, say yes to maybe 1 to 2, maybe 3, right? And the reason I wanted to touch on some of these points is that we, touched on them earlier in the conversation. And these are all what we call sleep hygiene issues, right? The first one, alcohol, right? It helps you relax, right? It helps you get to sleep sometimes. I remember grandma back in the day used to drink a little bit of, I think, Hennessy before she went to bed, which in retrospect, I wish I had told her, hey, it's actually not very good, right? But alcohol takes time to break down, right? And your liver and your kidneys are actually working overtime during the course of the night to process this. Caffeine, as we talked about, right, keeps you up, gives you energy. But if you don't cut it off ahead of time, right, it's going to inhibit the release of melatonin that we talked about earlier. So without the melatonin, you can't get to sleep, right? And you don't want to, because of that, you don't want to take extra melatonin and try to help you go to sleep. Exercise is important, right? It helps you stay in shape, it helps you stay healthy, helps your body release natural enzymes that help with recovery and help with sleep. So if you want to learn more, one of the things that we can help you with on Zen Sleep is you can take a longer questionnaire. It takes about 8 to 15 minutes, depending on your habits. And that essentially helps you understand your sleep issues, right? Whether it's caffeine, whether it's alcohol, whether it's behavioral based, it's mental based, right? Those are things that you'll see in our app that we've created along with my co-founder, Dr. Neil Klein, who's a board certified sleep physician. We essentially took the questions that a sleep doctor or a sleep psychologist would ask you, and you can see that on the app now. And what we do in the app is that once you answer all those questions, we tell you what to do, right? We have a homepage that says what you have to do from the time you wake up till to the time you go to bed, right? We remind you, we send you little reminders on your phone, you check them off. And you can actually also add custom things too, right? So my mother, who takes diabetics and heart medication, she can add those custom routines, and that actually reminds you of, hey, when I have to take this medication, when I have to do this thing I have to do during the day. And the last thing is that we, for anyone that wears an Apple Watch, a Fitbit, or Whoop, or any of these major wearables, you can connect it, right? So now you can see all those data points. And the way we show you the data is actually we show you really weekly data points or weekly averages. So instead of all the daily numbers that can get a little bit stressful at times, right? Oh gosh, like it's okay if you didn't sleep well today, right? You got tomorrow, you got the day after. So don't freak out too much if your daily numbers aren't as great, right? Take that longer term view, right? Look at that weekly average, look at that monthly average, right? Look at that 6 month average. Are you doing better than your last 3 months, your 6 months, right? That's really what we want to help guide people towards, right? Don't freak out too much about the nitty gritty daily stuff, right? There's some folks at Whoop that look at all the 5 different metrics that you have during the day, every day when you wake up. I think it's a little overkill, right? But really take that kind of long-term view on this. All right, so that's kind of it from my side. I want to open this up to Q&A. I want to make this an interactive kind of experience. So thank you very much for bearing with me babbling on for the last 30, 40 minutes. I'll do my best to answer a couple of questions now. As I mentioned, I will leave this up in the background. So if you're interested, feel free to visit our website at the bottom, zensleep.ai. You can also get us on the App Store for both Apple and Google Play. And then if you want to chat about sleep, feel free to email me. My email's at the top as well. So yeah, you can download this app anytime. Definitely check it out. We're offering a 1 week free trial right now. So yeah, always welcome any feedback. And yeah, Deirdre, I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sunny. I think we've got a number of questions in the chat, so I'll start reading them off. But if there are others that want to come in, feel free to pop your question in there. There was a couple back and forths around sleep studies. So mentioning, doctors suggesting sleep studies before trying any other intervention. And I think for at least some of us, myself included, when we think sleep study, we think of the, a very like cold doctor's office room, a lot of wires attached to you, how in the world could I sleep like I would at home during a sleep study? So could you talk a little bit about your thoughts on sleep studies and if there's any innovations in that realm?
Yeah. Thanks, Deirdre, and great question to whoever asked it, and we've been asked about this a lot of times, right? We touched on earlier in the presentation. One of the things that we've always been frustrated is how on earth are you going to sleep well in a terrible mattress when you're hooked up to 60 different wires, right? In a foreign, you know, motel room essentially, right? To put it politely, with some of these sleep centers. And that's really been the standard, right, for the last 20, 30, maybe 40 years. And that's something called a PSG. It's called polysomnography. examination, right? And that's what all the wires do. It's very good, right? They track all the data points that they need to know if to see if you have sleep apnea or some other kind of sleep issue. Now, the main issue is that you're probably not going to sleep well. So we have seen evidence that even for folks that might not have apnea or sleep issues, because of the fact that they're sleeping so terribly, in a sleep test, they end up getting misdiagnosed, right? And that's really the last thing you want. That's the last thing your doctor wants. It doesn't happen often. I will say, right, your doctor, if it's a qualified sleep physician, will really learn to understand those data points. But I think the important thing and really the revolutionary thing that we've seen over the last couple of years, and one of our good friends and colleagues who founded a company called Helios Health, they're doing this, for example, is you can do at-home sleep testing. All right. And that's something that a lot of physicians are really embracing right now. We're really excited about that because you no longer have to wait, 3 months to get your sleep physician to give you an appointment, and then another 6 months to like wait for the actual sleep test, right? And wait all this time just to go in for potentially inconclusive result. Now you can just go on Google, search at home sleep test. There are a lot of these great players. Wesper is another AARP involved company that we know well, and they'll send you this, right? You put a little thing on your head or on your chest or on your throat, and this thing actually monitors you over the course of a couple of days. And from what we've seen, the efficacy of that is actually getting really close to some of these in-lab tests, right? I think ultimately the in-lab stuff is still the gold standard. So my advice is, when you talk to your doctor, right? First of all, I think they should probably have some other form of first line of defense, right? To maybe do CBTI. If it's apnea, maybe look at some other data points before just sending you a sleep lab. But if you don't want to wait that amount of time and you want to have that terrible sleep study, talk to your doctor. Ask them about these at-home sleep tests, right? They most of them probably know about it, and they say, "Oh no, that's not the way to go." Maybe try to convince them again, right? Because these things are getting a lot better. And in some ways, like I almost think doing that at home, right, over the course of a couple of days, it probably gives better data than some of the sleep lab stuff. So again, not medical device advice here. Talk to your physician, but definitely mention these at home solutions because they're getting a lot better, and they may actually save you some time and money as well.
Very helpful. Thank you. All right, next question. There was a lot of conversation about needing to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. So for folks who have to wake up to use the bathroom, what do you recommend from a sleep perspective?
Yeah, Deirdre, great question. And one thing I will just say is that, especially for our 60+ community, as a man myself, I think it probably affects men maybe a little bit more, but also women as well, right? But especially with hormonal changes. So, look, it's normal, right? And I think we just want to say, like, don't freak out if you have to go to the bathroom. It happens to everyone. I'm 33 years old, and sometimes I have to wake up at night to go to the bathroom. So I think a lot of it depends on kind of, do you have any underlying conditions, for example, right? Your physician could probably give you some advice on that, maybe some medication to help you out with that if it's really an issue where you're waking up a lot during the night and going. But one trick that I will recommend is try to cut off water or liquid consumption 2 to 3 hours before going to bed. And there have been really misnomers in the past to put it this way that, oh, you drink a bottle of water before you go to bed to stay hydrated. No, that's terrible advice actually, because your body has water, right? You should probably drink that bottle of water, 3 or 4 or 5 hours before bedtime. Drinking that bottle of water at night just means you're going to fill your bladder up. You're probably going to have to wake up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom. So that's my advice. Before and 2 hours before bedtime, cut off any liquid consumption, and that has helped me personally a lot. So that's my kind of high level guidance. I think anything where you're waking up more than 4 or 5 times a night, definitely consult your physician. There might be some other cause, and then yeah, they'll probably give you the better solution to deal with that.
That's helpful. And then kind of along those same lines, sleeping in blocks, right? So if you do have to get up regularly to use the bathroom, is getting your full 8 hours in 2 or 3 hour chunks or 4 hour chunks, is that something that's recommended or is permissible if it's something that you have to do in order to get those 8 hours?
Yeah, Deirdre, that's a really good question. I think the ideal kind of best, sleep profile is the person that gets probably 30 to 40% deep sleep and then uninterrupted for 8 hours, right? Realistically, very few people on planet Earth are going to have that. My father being one, actually, I think he's probably one of the few human beings I know that can just sleep, just consistently, right? So that's rare. For most of us, my advice is don't hold yourself to that kind of standard, right? A lot of it's just physiological, it's genetic, right? Even as a 20-year-old, I was waking up many times during the night. And my baby nephew, who's 4 years old, he wakes up 5 times or 6 times a night crying, right? So it's hard to kind of pinpoint, like, what are the root causes. A lot of it's genetic, a lot of it's hereditary. So I would say, if you're waking up a couple of times, but then you're still able to fall back asleep, right? It's fine, right? I wouldn't worry too much about it. Obviously, in an ideal world, you're sleeping for the 8 hours straight. For me personally, as an insomniac, the last couple of weeks, I've personally been waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning, and then I'll get back to sleep, right? So I think for people with sleep issues, it comes in waves, right? There are points in your life where you're just sleeping phenomenally, right? And there are points in life where, because of maybe stress, work, health issues, and things like that, you're not sleeping as consistently. So, I guess my advice is, don't worry too much about it, right? Like if you're the total number, if you're getting those 7 to 9 hours some way in some form, right, that's generally okay. The fact that you have to wake up to go to the restroom, it's you have to do it, right? So don't worry too much. And one advice I like to give, and this is all part of the sleep hygiene or cognitive part of CBTI that you'll probably learn is, when you wake up, right, don't look at a clock, right? Don't look at your phone. Like please don't turn on your electronics, right? We're all at fault of that. Because that releases blue light, right? And blue light hits your eyes and it basically wakes you up, right? It turns off the melatonin in your brain. So if you have to wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning to go to the restroom, all right, don't freak out. Don't look at the clock, right? One thing that I used to do when I was working in Wall Street was, oh my gosh, if I woke up at 3 and I had to get to work at 8, I started doing math, right? So, oh gosh, I only got 5 hours left, right? And then that becomes stressful and you're not sleeping. You look back at the clock, it's like, oh my gosh, it's 6. I only got 2 hours left. And then you end up not sleeping the whole night. So this is actually something that sleep coaches and sleep psychologists will tell you, like, please, when you're sleeping, put away your clocks, your watches, right? All your electronics. Just focus on sleep, relax, right? It's all going to be okay. Even if you don't sleep well today, remember that concept of sleep that we talked about, that accumulates and helps you sleep the night, after. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question directly, but, I think it's just inevitable, right? It's fine. But I think if you add in summation the whole amount of sleep you have during the night, it's generally okay.
Yeah, it sounds like do the best you can with what your situation is and go from there. So I love that. There was another question, and you talked about your two wearables. What wearables would you recommend? And especially for someone who's maybe less comfortable with technology, so want something easy to learn. Are there ones that stand out from in the market?
Sure. Yeah, great question. So yeah, look, I think and just kind of go back to this slide. Okay, that we have here. Yeah, so these are the ones that Zen Sleep, our app, are connected with, right? Apple Watch. I think Apple is the most prevalent one. Many of you probably have it, and if you didn't know that there was a sleep tracker on this, definitely turn it on, right? Check it out. It's really good, actually. They've made a lot of progress. Fitbit is another very popular one. My own mother loves Fitbit. She swears by it. Yeah, I think it's got great displays, great charts. All right, Garmin for the more active folks, right? Aura Ring's another one. If you don't like having something on your wrist, then Aura is a nice little ring that you have. So that can be pretty easy, sort of discreet as well. And then Whoop, right? This is the one I'm wearing on my right hand. That's really geared for kind of the athlete, right? They give you metrics like HRV, VO2 during a hard workout and things like that. So look, my advice is they're all great. And by the way, I've been wearing these, and I'll wear my Oura Ring at night and Garmin as well sometimes because I'm just the lab rat, right? I have to wear all these to test them. Really for the last 3 4 years, and what I'll say is they're all very good, right? When it comes to sleep, The tracking element isn't that complicated, right? And you can also get sort of cheaper alternatives, right, on Amazon, some other cheaper brands for under $50, right? They're all getting pretty good. So I would say, whatever works for you, right? If you don't like a hefty watch when you sleep at night, maybe a lighter band like this, or the Aura ring, right? Like the ring that you just put on one finger probably is a little bit more easy to wear. So yeah, I think all of them are great. All their algorithms and their hardware are getting better and better. And I would say, take that sleep data with a grain of salt too, right? Because you don't want to, sometimes too much data can be analysis paralysis, right? You don't want to say, oh my gosh, like I got 7.5 hours last night. I was supposed to get 8. Am I going to make up for the 30 minutes tonight? All right, it's fine, right? I think, again, just looking at the weekly trends, the monthly, the 3 month, 6 month trends, that gives you a really good reference, right? Of how you're sleeping. Are these changes working or not? And if you're seeing like, oh my gosh, like I thought I was sleeping 7 hours, but in reality, I'm only sleeping 2 or 3. And, my oxygen score is really low and I feel really groggy during the morning. Wow, that might actually be, something to talk to your physician about, right? You might have to get tested for apnea, for example. So I think these are all great. Use whatever feels easiest for you, or it's most easy to use, and really take that data and really help yourself understand it better.
Thanks, Sunny. And I'll give a plug here. Senior Planet actually has a wearables at a glance lecture tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. So I'll put that in the chat. And also, if you want to talk to someone on our hotline and say, hey, these are the devices I have, or this is my comfort with technology, but I'm not quite sure. I'm, debating between these couple of different wearable devices. Can you help me make a decision? Give our hotline a call. I put the number in the chat as well, and folks would be happy to walk you through with that. All right, now we're getting right up to the top here. Let me see if there's any last questions that we can maybe squeeze in. I'll maybe try a quick one here.
Yeah,
There's been
sure.
a lot of conversation about different pillows in the chat. Any pillows that you recommend?
No, I mean, it's a funny thing to everyone here is, my mother was visiting me during the winter, and we probably tried like 8 different pills from Costco. So shout out to Costco for having a good return policy. So the trick is, look, I think it's so niche. Like it's like, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite flavor of ice cream? I think when it comes to pillows, my advice is go to Costco, right? Go to Amazon where you can get free returns, or Macy's or Walmart. I think most people have good returns. Just try them out, right? Try them out. Don't spend too much money. Honestly, I think it's a misnomer that the more expensive, the better something is. We ended up settling on the Beckham collection on Amazon, just not paid, by the way. So just free plug for them. I think it's probably $40 for 2 pillows, which is a lot less than some of the other fancy ones we saw from like Purple or Nectar or things like that. So yeah, pillows. Look, I think that the thing about pillows is it depends on whether you're a side sleeper, you're a back sleeper, front sleeper. I'm not the expert, right? I ended up just sleeping on one that I felt great, right? So that's my advice. Try them out. Just sleep on something that feels great. And I will say, for some of you, you might heard of companies like 8 Sleep, right? The number 8. And they're essentially like a high tech mattress, right? They have coils, really thin coils in their mattress that can either warm the bed up or cool the bed down, right? And these are very costly mattresses. And one last example I'll give is I had a friend who bought one of this for him and his wife. And he said, I wasn't sleeping, so I thought buying a $4,000 mattress that could cool me down would help, right? And he started sleeping on it. It wasn't helping him. So I asked him the questions we talked about earlier. I was like, hey, when's your last cup of coffee? Right? Are you drinking before bed? And his answer was no, no, no. It's all those 4 questions, basically. So I said, all right, why don't you do all these things, earlier, and then call me in 3 weeks? And he calls me. He's like, hey, I'm going to return the mattress because I'm actually sleeping better now. So it probably means that the mattress wasn't doing it for me, right? So there's one last parting word of advice is, look, I think pillows, mattresses, blankets, they're great. But in reality, it's the underlying things you do that dictates about 90% of your sleep, right? On the mattress point, if it's hot, then turn your AC colder, right? If it's too cold, maybe turn your heater on, right? If your pillow is not feeling great, don't spend $500 on some geese, feather thing from Norway, right? It's probably going to sleep the same as another, $40 Dell mattress one from Amazon. So try them out, do whatever works for you, and happy sleeping.
Thanks so much, Sunny. It sounds like maybe check the return policy too, and take
Yes.
advantage of those. Love that advice. All right, we're just at time here. I want to thank everyone for joining today. Thank you, Sunny, so much. I think a lot of people learned a lot, including myself. So again, I'll throw in the chat our YouTube channel where this recording will be posted in a couple of weeks. Usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get that up, as well as our Intro to Sleep Technologies lecture that's happening next Wednesday. So thank you everyone so much. Hope you have a great rest of your day and a restful night tonight.
Sleep well. Night.